about to look into the pages of the first continuous recorded history of mankind in the book we call the Holy Bible.
5,000 from the Red Cross shipped out today. What to do with the bodies is a pressing question.
We're with the Russian rescue crew, and they're going through building by building.
Flash flooding impacts Leominster, Massachusetts.
Welcome to Venice.
Libyans are now racing to bury their dead, but there aren't enough body bags.
With a death toll of more than 11,000, and a race that pits dignity and respect for those lost against the threat of disease and further calamity. Stephanie Sy reports. The deadly floods that inundated eastern Libya earlier this week have now led to a tide of the dead, bodies seemingly everywhere with a death toll of more than 11,000.
Building, most of them wrecked like this one, where you can see the water has reached the ceiling and still is flooding the basement, and they're wading through the water. There's a strong smell in many of the places, and they're trying to retrieve the bodies to give some sort of closure to the many thousands of families who are waiting to hear about what's happened to their loved one. They've brought dogs. They seem to have some sort of coordination, and they're methodically going through this row of shots to try and find out if anyone or any body can be retrieved.
Saad Rajab's home in the city of Sousse is submerged in layers of mud and completely unlivable.
It's not easy for a man to go through this. Only God knows what we are going through. Even the government did not help us. We are left out on the streets.
But the streets of Derna, about 60 miles east of him, have sustained the most damage. Thousands are still believed to be missing, and as much as a quarter of the city has been washed away. For the fifth day straight, local and international rescue teams continue to search the rubble and wade through the waters. Libyan authorities today sealed off most of the city and said only rescue teams would be allowed to enter the worst-hit areas. The UN says at least 1,000 bodies have been buried that way, which experts warn could lead to further trauma for family members.
Graves need to be mapped so that there is record of who is buried there. The efforts make it possible for loved one to later recover a body and have the closure of a private burial.
For the living, critical aid supplies are coming in, but with damaged roads and bridges, access to Derna remains difficult. Local authorities say a sea corridor could be established to deliver urgent relief. Martin Griffiths is the UN's top humanitarian official.
Priority areas are shelter, food, key primary medical care because of the worry of cholera.
But aid groups accuse the government of a lack of central oversight. Even before the disastrous flood, at least 300,000 Libyans were already in desperate need of aid. The UN has launched a $71.4 million appeal for the hundreds of thousands more now reeling from the floods. As appeals for help go out, prayers are lifted up. Hundreds of survivors filled a mosque still standing in Derna. Grieving, but not without faith. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Stephanie Sy.
About to look into the pages of the first continuous recorded history of mankind in the book we call the Holy Bible. We're going to investigate some of its most controversial stories and discover the answers to some very tough questions. Is the Bible a reliable account of miraculous interventions that rescue people from sudden doom and destruction? Or is it merely a collection of legends and myths, as some modern-day critics claim? Leading experts, both Bible skeptics and proponents, from throughout the world have contributed to the discussion of these biblical questions that may shock and surprise you. High on a mountain like for Noah and his family to face the greatest catastrophe the world has ever known.
Did a great worldwide deluge really occur? If so, where did the water come from? Where did it go?
Assuming that the fossil record of plants and animals can possibly prove that there was a global flood which destroyed mankind in Noah's day, isn't it logical to assume that there would be human artifacts in the sedimentary layers or the coal deposits representing this pre-flood civilization? If we can't find such artifacts, then essentially the story of Noah's flood is pure fiction. Where is the evidence for these human artifacts?
Our search for the Ark of Noah is not... Some people contend that the story of Noah's global flood...
Back to the Shang Dynasty, about 1700 BC, only within 600 years after the flood.
A study of universal flood traditions reveals that there are over 200 accounts. These traditions are also found to be worldwide in their distribution and have many common elements.
So, the naysayers to the contrary, we do find historical evidence of both Noah and the flood. 272 mentionings, to be exact, in every civilization and culture around the world, including the Aztec and Inca cultures the Spanish found in the New World. Despite all the ancient accounts and reported sightings, most people, over the years, felt that the Ark story was just an old legend. Part of the problem was that there was only one widely known written account of Noah's Ark, the Holy Bible. The credibility of the biblical story of Noah got a big boost from an unlikely source in a most accidental fashion, from this man. In any global flood which destroyed all mankind, you'd certainly expect to find some artifacts from Noah's pre-flood civilization. So then, what does the fossil record show? Have any pre-flood human artifacts ever been found? The answer seems to be yes. This iron pot, now on display at an Arkansas museum, was found encased in a piece of coal at the Thomas, Oklahoma Municipal Electric Power Plant in 1912.
I found this bell in a lump of coal when I was a young person firing a furnace in West Virginia. I dropped a large lump of coal, and when it broke, there was something sticking out of it. In the next few months, I abstracted this bell. The bell is approximately 7 inches, has a pagan god on top, and has an iron clapper, and the bell works very well. And over the period of time, we found out that it is made of both brass and bronze, plus arsenic, sodium, and antimony, which are not found in alloys that we have in the United States today. Historically, this pagan ceremonial bell is described very well by the account in Genesis found in 4:22 that says that Tubal-Cain was an artificer of brass and iron. And so this quite likely is a pre-flood civilization object and could have been carried over by Noah's flood into the coal.
This ancient man-made hammer was originally found in June 1934 in central Texas near the Llano Uplift. I took this artifact to Battelle Lab in Columbus, Ohio, the same lab that analyzed the moonstones. The elemental analysis shows that it is 96.6% iron, 0.74% sulfur, and 2.6% chlorine. Physicists tell us that under atmospheric conditions today, you cannot compound chlorine with metallic iron, yet here it is. Research indications are that the pre-flood atmosphere is the only plausible explanation for the forging of this metallic composition. Due to the pre-flood conditions of Noah's day, this hammer was forged in the generation of Tubal-Cain and Noah and deposited in the worldwide flood of Noah's day.
Days and 40 nights of rain is one of the Bible's most enduring and dramatic stories. But to accept this story of the flood as truth, we're faced with some very tough questions. All that water, where did it come from? How did it rise up and cover all the land masses? And after the flood, where did it go? Remember, we're not talking about a little bit of water here. The Bible says it was enough to use in every detail. Sealing his promise to mankind. The account of Noah's flood was a moving and dramatic ordeal for Noah and his family. But can we find any scientific verification of when the flood occurred and any documentation regarding the bow in the sky?
All of the dates that are given in the Bible, especially those that are given by Noah, are based on the moon and the sun. We can, with astronomy and our knowledge of that today, go back and precisely duplicate what he saw in the sky. The biblical account tells us Noah left the ark after he was on it 365 days. The second day after he was off of the ark, he built an altar, and a great bow occurred in the sky.
The World Health Organization called on authorities to stop burying flood victims in mass graves.